What's up, Navigating Academia family? This is your buddy Dr. J. Phoenix Singh coming at you to be able to let you know what I believe the 5 best so-called weaknesses are when you're getting interviewed for graduate school. Now, I would argue that these 5 are also relevant for postdoctoral positions as well, but let's just stick with kind of the grad school concept right now. So when you're getting interviewed, usually you're going to be asked a question, something along the lines of, so what would you say is your greatest strength or your greatest weakness? And this is something that throws a lot of people off. Usually people can come up with some pretty good ideas for what their greatest strength is, but literally I have had hundreds of people ask me on one of our most popular videos to date, which is about kind of like the top 10 graduate school interview questions and how to answer them well. You can go ahead and take a look at this channel. If it's something where you're interested in this kind of content about getting into grad school or getting a postdoctoral internship, then make sure to subscribe to the channel now. And if it's something where you're already subscribed, we love you, and please do smash that like button. It helps out the channel a ton in terms of optimizing the YouTube algorithm. So let's go ahead and get to it. This is something that I have thought quite a bit about because as you guys will know, if you watch the channel, it's very difficult to be able to come up with kind of a set of responses that would be relevant kind of across all fields. So for example, for some of these, like for number 1, which I'll get to in a second, in terms of one thing that I think is a great weakness to be able to list, it's just not relevant to people in the humanities, but it would be very relevant to people in any kind of the sciences. So, take everything with a grain of salt, and hopefully one of these 5s is going to work for you, okay? So let's go ahead and get into it right now. So number 1, in terms of the best weaknesses that you can mention in grad school interviews, is lacking knowledge about advanced research or statistical methods. Now, the best thing you can do here is to be able to take a look at the curriculum that basically you're going to have to go through in graduate school. So as part of a master's program or doctoral program, and I want you to find out kind of what sorts of courses they offer in terms of stats and research methods. If you can get a copy of the syllabi to those classes and take a look at what advanced methods they're going to be teaching you, this is like gold. Why? Because then you can say something along the lines of, as I've gotten further in the field, as I've proceeded further in the field, I've come to realize the significant importance of advanced research methods and statistical analytic techniques in this field. And when I was an undergraduate, the courses that I took kind of stopped at correlation and regression. But the more literature that I read in the field, the more I understand how necessary it is to be able to master more sophisticated techniques, things like survival analysis, hierarchical linear modeling, and so forth. And I was really thrilled when I took a look at the syllabi of some of the advanced statistical courses that are offered as part of this program, that I'm going to be able to learn about those things. And that's one of the many reasons why I would say that this is my top choice for a grad school program. Done deal. Okay. Number 2 best weakness that you can mention is public speaking. Again, right? You never want to say something that can like double as a strength. So you would never want to say something like, oh, my biggest weakness is that I love public speaking and sometimes people don't like me because I talk too much. That's not a good weakness, okay? Or, of course, the classic is, my biggest weakness is that I have no weakness, or something like this. It's just ridiculous, right? Don't ever say anything like that. But public speaking is a great one, and it's one that I've heard used in actual interviews, and it goes over pretty well. So the idea here is to say something along the lines, and you always want to talk about how you're improving this thing, right? So in this case, you would say, I would say that probably one of what I perceive to be my biggest weaknesses is I'm a relatively introverted person, and because of that, I have a little bit of an issue when it comes to public speaking. That said, I know that in terms of being able to most effectively disseminate the findings of my research, that it is critical that I get better at this, specifically to be able to go to conferences, to be able to network with other scholars, as well as to be able to present findings in paper presentations and poster presentations. And so even though this is something that I really recognize is what I think is my biggest weakness. I've been doing my absolute best to be able to take steps in the right direction. So, for example, I recently joined Toastmasters. If you don't know what Toastmasters is, they kind of teach you how to do public speaking. I recently joined my local chapter of Toastmasters, and now I'm expected to give a minimum of kind of one speech a month. I have to be honest with you, it's really scary, but at the same time, I do feel like I'm growing a lot as a person. Boom, there you go. Okay. Again, there's a problem that is an understandable problem. It's not being reframed as something positive. It's being reframed essentially in a way that makes it seem like you're a very proactive person. And that's the idea here, is that grad school supervisors want to know that if you have a weakness, what are you doing to overcome it? Okay? Number 3, in terms of best weaknesses, would be focusing too much on details. So being too detail-oriented. And the magic phrase here is not seeing the forest for the trees. Being detail-oriented is not a bad thing. Again, so long as you talk about how you're addressing this, you'll be okay. So you could say something along the lines of, I would say that both from my experience as well as what my supervisors as an undergraduate have told me, is that really my biggest weakness is sometimes losing the forest for the trees, because I am very meticulous and I am very detail oriented. And in some ways, I think that could be a strength, but at the end of the day, when it comes to research, I understand that particularly when it comes to writing publications, maybe that's appropriate to be that detail-oriented in, let's say, a method or a results section, but for something like an introduction section, an abstract, or a discussion section, it's one of these things where we can't be too in the weeds. We really need to take a look at the field from a 10,000-foot view, and this is something that I think I really need to work on during my graduate school years. So my hope is that simultaneously I can keep this good part of that in terms of being detail oriented and really focused on improving my skill sets when it comes to methodology and advanced statistical analytic techniques, but simultaneously I want to be sure that I have that ability to zoom out, get that 10,000-foot view, and by doing so become more effective when it comes to communicating the major findings of my studies. Done. Okay. So, and these are off the top of my head, but you get the idea. If you guys want more guidance on interviews and these things, watch the videos on this channel. And if you guys ever want to do a mock interview with me, I do them literally several times a week, and I tailor everything specifically for your programs. Just book a session with me down below. That's where the website is. You can get everything booked on there. Okay? So, here we go. Next one, number 4, best weakness, is saying that you have trouble saying no. Right, that's not necessarily a strength, but it is something that grad school supervisors will like to hear, right? And on this one, don't talk about how you're trying to make it better and have stronger boundaries. This is just a good one, right? So, what's your biggest weakness? Well, I think if I'm being honest, it's having trouble saying no. This is what I've always dreamt about doing ever since I was younger, getting a degree like this and pursuing this career. And I do always want to learn more. And I think that this is kind of a double-edged sword insofar as I really have a hard time saying no when opportunities come my way. And I know that I should probably have better boundaries with that. But right now, to be able to let go of any of these opportunities to learn more about this area would just be really hard for me. So that's my challenge. So yes, does that seem like something? Now I'm done with the answer. Does that seem like something that's actually a positive thing? Yes, but that is also something that could be perceived as a legitimate weakness. But frankly, what's going to happen is that if you say that during a grad school interview, some supervisors are going to just like salivate at the idea that it's like, wow, this person has a hard time saying no. I can probably get a lot of labor out of this particular individual. Should grad school supervisors be thinking that? No, they shouldn't. But do they? Absolutely they do. And my job on this channel is to always tell you the truth. So that's what it is. Number 5, best weakness, as I see it, is not spending enough time with family because you're too focused or because of whatever it is, right? Again, should this be something that grad school supervisors should salivate over? Absolutely not. Again, though, is it something that they might do? Yes. Why? Because it suggests that you're not the kind of person who's going to say, I have these definitive strong boundaries. Don't call me at 11 o'clock at night. I am not going to respond to your emails over the weekend, and so forth. As I say in so many videos, if you want work-life balance, don't do a doctoral program, please. Right? Again, as I say in other videos, right? It's work-life balance. That's what it is, right? This is not something where, anybody can go in and try to start to say to any grad school supervisor, hey, let me tell you how it's going to be when I'm your student. You're out of your mind. What grad school supervisors are looking for is somebody who, just like a little plane, is going to come in and have a really smooth landing and slide right into the terminal of their lab and basically not cause any problems, help them do a ton of seminal work, and everybody gets what they want, right? It is a transactional thing. Terrible to think about it like that, but that's honestly the best way to be able to think about it, okay? So, not spending enough time with family because you were too focused or because of school or whatever it is. So here, you would answer something along the lines of, I would love to say that I'm great at work-life balance, but to be honest with you, I think that work really for this time in my life is taking precedence. And I would say that is a legitimate weakness of mine, is not staying in better touch with friends and family from my past because I've been so focused on my schooling. But to be honest with you, I feel like this is the time of my life where this is where I really need to buckle down and be working. But I do recognize that in some ways I'm kind of having to let go of some of those friends or some of the depths of those relationships with my family members. But I know it'll all be worth it in the end. And this is what I really want to do. Okay, so that would be number 5 in terms of the best weaknesses. So those are my recommendations, guys. If you have recommendations for things that you guys have answered that you think worked really well in terms of big weaknesses, put them down in the comments below. This way we can all share our knowledge with one another. Also, if you have any questions that were kind of weird that you were asked in this past cycle and you want to share them with the entire channel, please, again, feel free to do that in the comments below. Oftentimes what I do is I make these videos where it's kind of like practice grad school or postdoc interviews, and it will help people out a ton to be able to have your questions. So, all right, guys, I appreciate you. Be sure to book a session with me down below so we can help you get into graduate school of your choosing, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Peace.